A warm welcome for Jeff Katz out of Berlin. So, hi Jeff, thanks a lot for joining us.
It's a pleasure to be here.
The idea is that it's a pretty short segment, maybe 5 minutes, but was just thinking that you could talk a little bit about what you're doing in Berlin and what the community is like.
Sure, we're doing lots of really cool stuff in Berlin, actually. So to give you an idea, about 3.5 years ago, we founded the Hardware Berlin meetup, and in the course of the last 3 years, it's grown and developed into now it's called Hardware.co. And as part of that community, we run meetups, lunch events, we run evening events like yours, and we also run a not-for-profit hardware accelerator where we take companies from all over the world, we bring them to Berlin for a couple of weeks, and we put them up with mentors and resources and really push their companies forward. And for that, we don't take any equity or any money or anything like that. It's all run by sponsors.
That's very exciting, and I remember seeing Hardware Co. when I was in Berlin maybe 2 years or so ago myself. And I think that was part of the inspiration for getting this meetup group going here. So I didn't meet you at the time, but I'm very happy about what you're doing. So could you talk maybe briefly about how do you find time to do that, and what's the trade-off between your community activities and whatever you're doing for like your main line of business, or is that the main thing you're doing?
Well, the focus originally for starting the hardware meetup here is I was fresh in Berlin and I was working at a hardware startup. And Berlin at the time, it was already sort of a startup-y, hubby kind of place. And so there were a lot of meetups that were startup oriented. And I went to some of these meetups, like the Berlin Tech Meetup and things like that. And there were a bunch of people complaining about AWS and JavaScript and all sorts of stuff that like has nothing in the same universe as, yeah, I have a 26-week lead time, and how am I going to get this into my customers' hands? So he said, there's got to be other people making stuff. There's got to be other people with the same kind of problems that we have. So he said, you know what? The heck with it, let's just start a meetup and see who comes. And the first meetup was a lunch meetup, and 20 people came without any promotion from us. And that was pretty cool. So we ran it again, and then 30 people came, and then 30 people came, and then the restaurant kicked us out, and then 40 people came. And then we said, okay, this is definitely headed somewhere. And for us, and at the time I was working with Kiwi, the idea was building up the hardware startup community in Berlin directly benefited us at Kiwi. So the more people are interested in hardware, the more hype there is, the more news there is, the more attention you can bring to the fact that there are people making hardware, the easier it is to hire people, the easier it is to raise money. And so it was a very reciprocal relationship. So how did I find time to do it? Well, I almost got divorced from my wife. I didn't see her for a long time, and she was fed up with it. But thankfully, everything's okay now. Somewhere she's giving me a dirty look, I'm sure. But I was working a lot of long hours for the hardware startup, and then a lot of extra hours for the meetup. And that's sort of how we pulled it together.
Very cool. So we're on our number six hardware event, and we're maybe 150 people today.
Cool.
Yeah, thank you. And today we are running a theme around sound and music. When you look forward, like what are the types of things that you think really makes a difference in building the community around hardware? Like, so we're doing this monthly event. Is it acceleration program for startups, or is it workshops for creatives, or like what are the things that you feel like really has made a big difference for your community?
I think the biggest thing, the most important thing is the community itself. And it's not that we built this community. The community was already there, but people were working sort of alone by themselves, and bringing the people together and exchanging ideas and experience and things like that is the most important thing. So the accelerator came about where we said, okay, we have this hypothesis that Berlin is the hardware startup capital of Europe. And assuming this hypothesis is true, what's missing? And we said, okay, well, there aren't any hardware accelerators. At the time, there was Hacks in Shenzhen, and there were a couple in California, but there aren't any hardware accelerators anywhere in Europe. So if Berlin is the startup capital, the hardware startup capital, then there should be an accelerator. And so this is the kind of crazy thinking that caused that to happen. But in terms of how to improve the community, just have regular events, get the community out, have events at different times of day. So we found that different people were able to come to the lunches as opposed to the evening events because of whatever their work arrangements are. And if you announce the stuff further out in advance, then usually you get a better response. But honestly, just keep at it, keep getting people together, exchanging information, and really cool stuff will happen.
That's great. Thank you, Jeff. And before we let you go, maybe just give folk a sense of how they can reach out to you if they want to chat more about what you're doing, or how to get connected to the ecosystem around you in Berlin. Then how do they get in touch with you?
Sure. The easiest way to get a hold of me is actually to send me an email. So the email address that's most relevant is the letter J at hardware.co. So just hardware.co. And apart from that, I'm on Twitter at @Kraln, Kraln. And basically, if you Google me, you will find me pretty quickly.
Cool. And I'll make sure to also post your contact details on website and our social media. So, Jeff, thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank you so much. One thing?
Yeah, okay.
Just one more thing.
Yeah,
so we're running the next batch of the accelerator in January, and you should already send me emails if you're interested in coming to Berlin for a couple weeks to get filled with knowledge about how to build cool stuff.
Very cool. Good call out. Thank you, Jeff.
All right. Hey,
Thanks. Bye. Nice.